Everyone knows how the song goes, you know, it's Spider-Man, Spider-Man does whatever a spider can, except he can't really, can he? There's the vague proportional strength and speed of a spider thing, but otherwise Peter Parker and actual arachnids couldn't be more different. Spider sense isn't a real thing, his webs are usually artificial instead of coming out of his butt, he has 2 eyes and the regular amount of limbs. Obviously, I'm just having a bit of a laugh with this intro, but for as beloved as the hero is, there are some real issues with the character, both past and present, that seem to just fly under the radar. And listen, it's not easy for me to admit either, as he's my favourite superhero, but Peter Parker is all about his flaws, and it's about time we recognised a couple of them. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 problems with Spider-Man nobody wants to admit. Number 10, he should be broke. Like, really broke. Peter Parker being skint is something that gets brought up quite often, particularly as a running joke anytime he gets recruited by the Avengers. Well, if he's not totally broke, he's not doing particularly well money-wise. In his teens, he used income from odd jobs at the Bugle and later as a science teacher. However, in most incarnations, he shouldn't be making enough money to sustain a fairly comfortable lifestyle in the Big Apple. Peter Parker's digs have never been consistent, but he's always managed to afford a decent sized apartment, even when he had very little money coming in and sizable outgoings, i.e. the money spent on webbing ingredients, replacement costumes, etc, etc. So what I'm saying is Spider-Man should be broke, but like actually broke, not just a guy who asks if he'll get paid whenever he shakes hands with Captain America. He should be like homeless, or at least living in a crummy studio apartment, or better yet, boarding with his aunt in Queens. Realistically, anyway. Number 9, MCU Spider-Man is basically an Iron Man legacy character. After a rough period where Spider-Man's movies entered a black hole of quality, they were revitalized by integrating them with the MCU. Across 2 standalone movies and 3 crossovers, Tom Holland's take on the character, to many, has become the definitive screen version. However, this integration has not been without its problem. For one, Tony Stark has essentially replaced Uncle Ben as Peter's father figure he can't live up to, and his shadow hangs over everything. From his high-tech suits and gadgets to endless powerful contacts to his own origins as a hero, Spidey's story is inherently tied to Stark. While it hasn't made the movies bad by any means, it has robbed some of what makes Spidey, well, Spidey. He's someone who's currently living in someone else's world, which is a shame when the webhead has an entire universe of possibilities when it comes to stories that entirely center around him. And don't get me wrong, Sony almost certainly would have shat the bed had they not rekindled their romance with Marvel last year, but those movies would have at least brought Spider-Man back into his own orbit. Number 8, he doesn't make any sense as an Avenger. Speaking of Spider-Man's relationship with the MCU, in general, he's never really made total sense as an Avenger. Of course, he's held Avengers membership numerous times in the comics, from the days where almost every hero in the Marvel Universe was a reserved part of Earth's mightiest heroes, to recent years when he's specifically been recruited, first for the Skeleton Crew New Avengers and for the galaxy-spanning Avengers proper, as well as the Mighty Avengers. The problem is, Spider-Man doesn't work as an Avenger. For one thing, where the hell would he find the time? He's one of the few members of the team who has a secret identity to try and keep hold of. Speaking of which, do they even know his identity? And if not, why should they trust him? Plus, he isn't much of a team player and practically just appears as comic relief. Also, 9 times out of 10, he's butting heads with the rest of the team. Hell, we've even covered the worst things that the Avengers have done to the character in video form, and things can get pretty gnarly. And admittedly, this dynamic works better in the films, but in the comics, Spidey sticks out in the team like a sore thumb. Number 7, when was the last time he had a legendary run? Now I've got a question for you. When was the last time Spider-Man had a must-read legendary run of comics from one creative team? It's hard to pinpoint, right? I mean, while Venom has spent the past few years dishing out some of the best Spidey-related comics, and other spin-off characters have similarly been on a creative resurgence, Spidey's run has been frustratingly hit and miss. There are moments and certain stories to like, of course, and I know there's a lot of people out there who really did enjoy Dan Slott's run, but it's never been consistently amazing. There's been no real run where everyone's been convinced they were reading something that will be held up in the future there with the greats. For decades now, the best Spidey stories have arguably been small runs or self-contained events like Spider-Man Life Story, which is strange considering he's still Marvel's biggest hero. Number 6, everything's been boned since One More Day. Every writer on Spider-Man has been attempting to fix the problems laid down by One More Day, a storyline integrated by the then editor-in-chief Joe Quesada. You see, Quesada personally didn't think much of a grown-up Peter Parker married to Mary Jane. He thought it aged him and made the character boring. Quesada presumably doesn't think there's much drama or conflict to be found in a marriage, which, you know, good for him, and he long wanted to break the couple up, but knew that having them get divorced or something like that would be equally poisonous in his mind to having them be married in the first place. The only thing worse to him than Spidey in a holy matrimony is Spidey in a divorce case like he's Adam Driver in Marriage Story, which, by the way, I absolutely would watch. So, at his behest, the worst Spider-Man comic in history was created, where Peter and MJ sell their marriage to the devil so that Aunt May won't die. This retconned their marriage so it never happened, and also so Spidey didn't reveal his secret identity during the events of Civil War. It was perhaps the clumsiest reset in the history of comics. The issue was that the new status quo was never quite properly established, and none of the characters have ever quite recovered from this totally idiotic comic book. Number 5, Mary Jane has barely any character. Mary Jane Watson is arguably just as popular, or at least recognizable, as any superhero from Marvel or DC, and yet most people probably don't have a clue what actually makes her a good character. Yeah, she's a redhead, she says tiger a lot, and obviously she's in love with Peter, but those things don't make up a personality. They don't form a character, and they don't make her compelling to read on the page or watch in the movies. Writers have admittedly done some good things with her in the past and recently, but more often than not, MJ is just kind of an extension of Peter to be saved or to cause relationship drama we've all seen before. And as mentioned, when we could have gotten some interesting drama about what it's like to be married to a superhero, the reset button was hit to go back to a will they won't they dynamic like it was season 2 of Friends or something. Number 4, why do people still fear him? Now this is a problem with another of Marvel's biggest success stories as well. Part of the X-Men's whole deal is that they're hated and feared by humanity, with their battles against evil mutants described by the media as battles for supremacy before they take over the world. This same unpopularity is also supposed to be part of Spider-Man's character, with J. Jonah Jameson famously leading the vocal majority who think the hero's a menace and not at all a hero. Not to mention the fact that the police themselves also go back and forth on whether they actually like having the wall crawler around. But this, in my opinion, makes absolutely no sense. It's made even worse because Spider-Man is on record as being pals with plenty of heroes people do respect, like Captain America and the Fantastic Four, and he's been part of the Avengers on multiple occasions, saved New York countless times, saved the world countless times, and he's even probably saved the universe countless times as well. I mean, I just don't get how you can think this guy is a menace, but then again, I work on the internet, so I have seen firsthand people spew hate towards some genuinely nice folk for seemingly no reason. And yeah, with that in mind, I actually kind of take this one back. That does probably make more sense than I'm giving it credit for. Number 3, seriously, let Aunt May die. Right, so Aunt May. Even given the way that Marvel time works, i.e. it doesn't really, but there's some sort of sliding timeline that allows Peter to have left high school, gone through college, and become a proper grown-up, when in fact he should have aged about 60 years since his first appearance, this old codger should be 6 feet in the ground by now, surely. And come on, listen, I'm not in the business of wanting to see lovely old women bite the dust, but come on guys, it's time to do the right thing. The frail old aunt made sense when Peter was living with her, and even when he moved out so he had someone to worry about suffering on his account, but going to such lengths to keep her around now, it doesn't make any sense. Even worse, there have been moments when May's passing would have been perfect and allowed the story to jump forward, but that leads us nicely into my next point. Number 2, the character is never allowed to grow. This is an issue that haunts lots of comic book characters to different extents, but it's particularly a problem with Peter Parker. I've mentioned at length so far about how the writers have a specific idea of who Peter Parker should be, and that's resulted in a bunch of different creative ideas being thrown out the window to revert back to the same old status quo. Any time something substantial happens to Peter, whether it's him becoming a CEO, having his brain being taken over by a supervillain, or even getting married, there's always the expectation that it won't stick, and and then he'll end up back being broke, struggling through relationship problems while worrying about his frail old Aunt May. Spider-Man stories outside of the comics have shown how exciting a Spidey world that's actually allowed to develop could be, and the PS4 game in particular made some bold choices, but sadly the same can't be said about the core series. And look, I'm not saying everything's a brilliant idea and should be kept with. I don't want Spidey to be really a clone, but if you don't give him the option to grow and you don't allow these consequences to actually mean anything in the long run, then what's the point? Number one, he really doesn't live up to that lesson he learned. Peter Parker's whole deal is right there in his origin story, that 10-page piece from the final issue of Amazing Fantasy way back in 1962. He becomes Spider-Man, then doesn't stop a burglar from robbing the wrestling venue he's working at because it's not his problem, and then that same crook comes back to murder Uncle Ben. At this point he learns a lesson: with great power comes great responsibility, and it's that ethos that has carried through every Spider-Man comic, TV show, film, game, and action figure ever since. It's the one guiding principle with which he goes about his superheroic business, and yet it's a lesson that he frequently twists to suit his own needs or else abandons altogether. He's put loved ones in jeopardy, he's allowed supervillains to break out of jail time and time again to commit more crimes and then even kill people. Hell, there was even a time that he lowered himself to CIA-style tactics and effectively tortured the Sandman, except it wasn't even to get information, it's just because he could. That last one especially isn't using your power responsibly. In fact, it's abusing that power. Either this is a problem with the character or the greatest achievement in creating a flawed real superhero, one who can't even follow his one lesson. So that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think about what I've had to say about Spider-Man here? And just remember, like I said at the beginning, he is my favorite character, so we aren't just ribbing on him. I'm not saying this makes him bad or his story's bad or anything like that. He's a cool dude. Either way though, could you give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon for Whip.